Hello, everyone. Let's get started. So I want to tell you a story about this little startup that I work for. GE is 124-year-old startup, and GE is going through a transformation. They're becoming a digital company, and you may have heard it. You may have seen some of the signs of it on television, the advertising and such. I work out in San Ramon. I'm the head of mobile engineering, and today I'm going to talk to you about why offline first and how does it relate to GE and this transformation. This is a picture of someone that works on my team or would work. You may have seen him on television. This is Owen. He's got the hammer that's too heavy for him to hold. This seriously, GE is part of its transformation is coming to this part of the world to make this the center of its GE digital organization, and so that we can help accelerate this transformation. GE is more than just light bulbs and refrigerators. It really, right now, it's an industrial company that is spread across these different businesses, from oil and gas, power generation, wind and water. It builds rail cars, wind turbines, builds power plants. It's a major industrial company, and there's a term that's describes this part of the digital economy that Ravi was talking about and Bob were talking about down below. It's called the industrial internet, and it is amazing the transformations that are going on in these companies, and you heard a little bit about it downstairs. In this industrial world, it really is interesting that you can look at this is a projection on the market value in 2025 compared to what the industrial internet will compare to the consumer internet. So we heard a lot about the consumer internet, but you can see that a number of analysts and groups feel that the industrial internet is going to quickly catch up and outpace the consumer internet. And this is why GE is all in on this. I mean, this is a major change, and this is a new market. And what's driving this market is it's a part of IoT. We always hear about IoT, the smart toothbrushes and things like that. But this is in this part of the IoT world, this industrial Internet of Things, we're talking about major assets, oil rigs, rail cars, and so these assets are all getting smarter. They're getting more and more sensors. There's an explosion of data, and so before I answer this question here, let me just sort of tell you what the industrial internet means. These large assets, it's very simple. It's about how do you use the data to keep the assets up and running longer, less downtime. How do you increase their lifespan? And also, how do you avoid major disasters like a blowout of an oil rig or something like that, or a major accident on a rail line, a derailment? So this is really simply what the industrial internet is about, is how do we use this data from these systems to get smarter, and to improve the assets' efficiency and optimize them. And so mobile is a big part of that. So part of working with these assets, one major part is servicing them, a mobile workforce. So this mobile workforce is needs applications that are always on. I like that term that Ravi used, always on, because it really, what that means is that it has to work when you have no network connectivity or when there's somewhat, or you're somewhat connected. And so your applications always have to be working. And so just like when we took a mobile-first approach, that helped us build better applications. Going a step further and taking an offline-first approach will help us build better applications. So we build applications for people that work in these industrial settings, places like this, top of a wind turbine, in a rail yard, where you may have Wi-Fi connectivity, but you're in this yard with lots of interference, and so you're somewhat connected, and crews need to be able to have their applications always working. Or you're working on very complex assets, and you need information about those assets, and you need it quickly. The other part about this is that by taking offline first approach, not only does it work, it's always on, your applications will perform better. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the last thing that you want your applications to see, and I think I stole this from Zach, is this. Yeah. So thank you, Zach, for that. But this is really, I mean, we're all familiar with this, right? You're always, you know what this is about. And this is the last thing you want your users as a developer to see this when they need your application. So this is, what are we doing about it at GE Digital, and what we've done with the mobile team? Well, now there's more than GE Digital than mobile. I'm going to talk about that, but there's a whole platform being built called Predix, and it's really about that first part of that I was talking about, is getting that data from these assets, getting them into the cloud and running analytics on them, making it actionable so you can dispatch the mobile workforce to service those assets. So there's you can go out now, predix.io, you can register for a free trial, and there are services out there like Machine, which is about how do you connect to these machines out there and gather the data. There's Edge Manager, which is a single point of entry for managing these devices remotely. And there's a lot of other things like time series, asset data, data services, and so on. And this is in the catalog. So this is a little different than Amazon or Heroku. This is really focused on the industrial internet. This is about building industrial applications. So you'll find in there, it's cut off there. So mobile service, we have a mobile SDK and a mobile backend as a service. And you can, so I'll show you a picture here. Let me get to this. So this is when we keep cutting some of that off there. Is that, we fix that? No. Can we just give me? All right, that's good. That's good. That'll work. Great. Okay, so okay, go away. Thank you. All right. So what we built is a platform as a service that has an SDK that has, it's really designed to build these industrial mobile applications, both hybrid and native. It talks to a back-end service that's running in the cloud, and that connects to some back-end systems. So the characteristics of these industrial internet mobile applications are they're mission critical, and they have to work everywhere, and they're always connected to some enterprise system. The data right at this point hasn't got to the point where everything is in Couchbase. The data is back in some legacy system. It could be, some cases, we've had customers that are connecting to AS400s. These are systems that have been around for a lot of time. So we're building this platform to make it easy to build systems that can connect to these back-end systems and be mobile. And a core part of this is Couchbase. We use Couchbase Lite on the device and Couchbase on the back end. We're actually, so what we've done here, something different about our mobile back end is that it's now multi-tenant and it's cloud-based. So what that means is that you're able to go out there and easily spin up a back-end service that could be a cluster of Couchbase nodes that's highly availability, that's replicated across data centers, and it doesn't require you to have an IT organization to manage that. And I'll show you how simply it will be for you to do that. So this is our mission. I keep repeating it over. This is what we strive for. We've been working on this for a little over a year and a half. We did start before that. We tried building the underlying syncing capabilities ourselves before we discovered Couchbase, and that made things a lot easier. I spoke about this last year, about how quickly we were able to make that transformation. Let me just show you, in our next release, which is coming up at the end of this year, when you'll go out to our, when you get an account, you can connect into the cloud, into Predix, and you can go create a service. So this would be, so to create a high availability service, it would be something like this. You'd say create service, Predix Mobile HA. You say I want 3 servers and 2 gateways. And within a few minutes, that environment will be spun up for you. Now, let me make this is going to just be within a mobile offering. This is not offering this as a full-blown back-end Couchbase server. It's really about, we're using this specifically for our mobile platform. We haven't yet exposed this for doing other things like you are hearing about downstairs in terms of running nickel or analytics or doing a lot of data management. It's really about more of a high availability caching layer that sits between the mobile devices and your back-end system. And so just like easy to create it, we can update the service cluster. You can increase the number of services and gateways, and magically all that will get reconfigured, data will be deployed, and that's it. Doesn't require you, it's simple as that. So it really makes it easy for you to deploy and manage these. And this will all be, of course, monitored and backed up for you. So we're using Docker, and Couchbase are some of the key parts of our makeup. Key parts of Couchbase, cross data center replication is very easy with that. That makes it easy for us to deploy those features for you. On our SDK, this is something that lets you build applications across all the major platforms. We build in the offline support. Couchbase comes built in the SDK, which is different than something like Cordova where you have to add it. This is built since we We know offline first, we decided it just had to be there from the get-go. And so the idea is to make it easier for you to do it. It runs both hybrid and native. So we're going to show you a bit about hybrid today, but you can build native applications on top of this SDK also. And we have if you're familiar with Cordova, they use the notion of plugins for exposing things as part of the underlying framework. We use on-device RESTful services, so it makes it very familiar to web developers. When they're talking to the service, like the DB service, which is Couchbase, they're talking as if it's a RESTful service. And so it's using standard interfaces, and it's not Cordova and PhoneGap. We don't just want to make that clear. Some people walk out and say, oh yeah, that's Cordova. It's not. It's completely built from the ground up, really very light and targeted to these types of applications we're talking about. And to give you a little example here, we're going to do a demo here in a moment, but this would show you an example of if you're going to go get a work order, you're just going to make that AJAX call there. That would go out and go to the database, use the work order ID, and it'll return back that document. Very simple. You can extend the services, like you could add plugins with Cordova. And here's an example of, on iOS, we have there's a standard interface that you implement, service protocol, and it's fairly straightforward. We have a lot of examples on that. This is showing an example of a camera service, and this would be how you would call that service. Actually, no. This is more about the service. That's right. Actually, this is how you would call it right there. You call it as a RESTful service. You send a post to the camera URL, and that'll activate the camera and let you take pictures and capture them into your web app. Very, very simple, straightforward. We're going to do a demo now and give you a sense of hopefully how easy this is to use. This is Jeremy. You'll have to introduce yourself.
All right, thanks, Mike. So yeah, today I want to give you a quick demo of some of the features that we have in our SDK. And as Mike talked about, we have one of our main features is the ability to work offline first. But also one of the other features that we have that we like to demo is the ability to quickly update your application. So in this case, I'm showing you more of a hybrid context of how we could quickly add a feature to the application without having to have the user have to go and re-download their entire application from, say, iTunes or from their enterprise app store. So this is just a quick demo I threw together. And here I'm just going to kind of show you, like most other hybrid frameworks, the HTML, JavaScript, CSS is resident on the device. And if I happen to go into airplane mode, I can still navigate my application. It's also there. But in this case, what if I'm a field engineer and I actually want to log in and I have no connectivity, so I happen to be out in the field. So let's try that really quick. Oh, well, that's a problem. I can't do that. So with our platform, one of the simple things you can do is push an update. And luckily, I've already thought about this problem and already put out a fix. So let me just go ahead and deploy that. Come back online. OK, it's ready to go. And so unfortunately, I still have to log in first online so I can pull this update down. But you'll see that with any luck, my application has changed to ask the user about some additional information. OK, sweet. So here we are. I've pushed an update, and now I have a screen asking me to create an offline password so that when I'm offline, I can still log into this application. So let me do that really quick. OK, and so let's try that little test again. Let's go into airplane mode, kill the application. And okay, so now it's asking me for my offline password that I just created. And I'm into the application. I can see my data. And like we talked about before, the whole application is built around this notion of offline first. So if I want to go ahead and start my work while I'm offline doing some work on this, I can start it. And because I had a previous session, now when I come back into network connectivity, my data changes will sync with any luck. And voila, my data is now persistent on the back end, and other people who are dependent on this application can see that I've started this work and kind of monitor the progress from there. And with that, I'd like to hand it back to Mike.
Well, that was pretty cool, huh? Hopefully that woke you up after that long session there. Great, thank you, Jeremy. That was great. We've built a lot into this platform to make it easier to build these applications. So that's the point here. That's what we're doing here at GE, and so we've got the tools for you to go build these industrial internet applications that are always on. And but there's always a but, right? Always a but. That we've got no magic for you. We give you some tools, and what it's kind of obvious, but what you need to bring to the table, well, if you've got magic, that's great. But it really is an offline first mindset. And the reason I say that, when we've talked about this before, is that it's really a different way of thinking about building applications. And so let me kind of walk you through some of the things that you need to consider when you're building applications with an offline first approach. Just like with mobile first, you have to focus on what's important. So you really need to understand that. And in an offline first, it's a lot about the data, really. It's about, you need the right data at the right time. Now we could, maybe in some cases you can download all the data onto the device, but in most cases you can't. So how do you get that data on the device at the right time? And this is the part where you as application experts, subject matter experts, building this, you need to understand this and design your application to do that. And if you're building industrial internet apps, you're going to have to think about this, where the data is not typically in our back-end service. It's in some other system, some enterprise data domain. And how do you so you need to be able to read the data and be able to write the data back to the domain. And so you've got this really distributed architecture. So you have to understand that, because it's really about the data and in moving that data in a way that gets it to your devices. And and you have to deal with the latency, because if you're in that case that Jeremy was just showing, if you had been working on something and you were offline and you committed it, great, you can go continue to work. But that work is not going to transact with your backend system maybe till an hour later, or a few minutes later. So you have to deal with that from the user experience. How are you going to keep your users informed about where the data is? Because they're not familiar with these types of scenarios. They may think things are broken if they're not getting a response back. So that's why offline first takes a different mindset. So we invite you to go check out Predix Mobile. If you're familiar with Couchbase, you can appreciate some of the features, some of the underlying capabilities that are built into it. And that you can start to think about or actively build these applications. Predix is a catalog. It's really about building this capabilities for building industrial internet apps, and that, as you see, in terms of where the future is, in terms of the market, where the dollars will be, the industrial internet is something to consider if you're a developer. So thanks. I appreciate you coming here. We've got plenty of time, so we're happy to answer some questions, and so open it up to the floor. One of the questions that we get asked a lot is, like, where can you get the SDK? How do you get it? So you can, we have it. You go to predix.io. You'll find our documentation. Our SDK is out on GitHub. You just go out there and download it, and you're up and running. And we have examples on how to build applications in there that you can use as templates. Some of the things people are building with it. GE has a major conference coming up called Minds and Machines. One of the third-party services that are listed in the catalog has a data integrity service that's built around blockchain. So one of this, like a typical industrial scenario, highly regulated, there may be field workers out remotely configuring assets that control things like railroad crossings. And so what they need to be able to do is that when that configuration, that record of that configuration needs to become permanent and be assured that hasn't been tampered with. So we're using this, we're basically putting that cryptographic hash of that record on the blockchain so that if there was a case where there was an accident, you could be assured that the service record hadn't been tampered with. So that's an example of a third-party service that's out there. So any questions? Yes?
What's the pricing?
Yeah, pricing is currently you do it per user, and so it's the number of users that you have on your system. So and it varies. So if a lot of these applications, they may only have 100 users. They're building it, so it's not. And then there's cases where we have customers that want to build internet scale things. So the way we meter this is by users. So it would be active users per month, and so the pricing varies. We can talk about it offline. Okay. Yes.
So I need. So this Predix is a cloud. It's a platform built by GE on the cloud, or that's what my understanding is.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay.
Yes, it's built on Cloud Foundry.
Cloud Foundry. Okay.
Yep.
So when you say build, so you provide the APIs for the users, and then as a user or consumer of this platform, I can create a server, or how does it work? Or this is just an API, or like how?
Right. So let me go back to the picture that I showed a little bit of that high-level architecture. I can tell you about mobile, and then we can talk a little bit about the other services. Okay, there we go. So what happens is, like when we went out there, when I showed you create a service, you get an endpoint, and so if you looked at the settings on Jeremy's phone, there'd be a setting that had that endpoint on it. And basically, so now what you've done is you've connected Couchbase Lite to that mobile backend service via Sync Gateway. And we've added some other capabilities on that. Now, question is, how do you integrate with other things? So that we built an integration layer where you see those arrows. And so you can build microservices that you can do it in Spring Boot or Node or other languages that are supported out there. And these services really are doing two things. They're reading data and they're writing data. We've built into the platform a mechanism built around command query responsibility segregation, where you separate the reads from the writes. That's why we show it as two separate things. There's a notion of bilateral and then unilaterals. So by separating the reads from the writes, it gives you more control of that data, especially in cases where you have to talk to some backend system. So you create a command object that would be deployed, would talk to a write service that would handle that command. And we built in the routing logic, so that command is just it's just a JSON document, very simple. You would just write it as any other one, and it would get delivered to that command processor, to your writing service, and execute that command. That command processor could do other things too. It could change access to the data. And so in the case where we were doing the blockchain, we're using the command processing to send a command to a service that would then put that onto the blockchain. So that's how you build, in our mobile platform, you do that. So it's a standard, it looks like a RESTful service. That's what the microservice is.
So out of the box, I get this Couchbase environment is there as part of this platform. So
and you get the SDK.
I get the SDK. So I have to download the SDK.
Yeah.
And I have to download a copy of Couchbase Lite and integrate and
No,
nothing.
nothing.
Okay, so SDK, as part of the SDK, Couchbase Lite is included as part of the SDK.
All you have to do is use that interface that I showed you.
Okay, so now in Couchbase, let's say to use Couchbase, I have to store my documents, right? So I'm one of the client. So do I have to create my own bucket there, or it's you have one general universal bucket and all documents go into that bucket?
Yeah,
for all the clients?
currently now, well, each tenant gets their own instance. Right, so you're not mixing tenants. So if you're building, so this is the way we get, we do multi-tenancy. You get resource isolation, so you get your separate instances of Couchbase. And so, yeah, that's it. You can see we take away sort of, you don't have to worry about deploying it onto the server, managing it, monitoring. That's all done for you. But the point, this is really targeted to this specific case. Like if you wanted to then load up that system and run a lot of data analytics on it, that's not what it's built for. It's built for really mobile, to support mobile applications integrated with other systems.
And to integrate the backend with the enterprise system, right? So let's say for the read process or the write process, all those interfaces, we can write it as part of a microservice and deploy it on your platform, or we have to deploy it outside of your platform?
Yeah, you deploy it on Predix. You would just create in Cloud Foundry, you would, you say you had a Node application, you just do a CF push, and it will just push it up to your space, run that, and we give you a command line tool so you can set up the route to that service. So you can authenticate, you go in, attach your service to your mobile service, simple command, one command, and then you're set up now that service is set up to receive documents, receive commands.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I was just wondering, Cloud Foundry, this is your platform. The IBM Bluemix is also on Cloud Foundry.
Yes.
And it seems like you guys have the same platform that you could integrate with. Is that possible?
At this point, no, we're not partnering with IBM and Bluemix. We've taken a different approach. I mean, Bluemix is a great platform, has lots of capabilities, but it's a broader platform. It's really focused across all kinds of applications. Our platform is really targeted to these industrial applications. That's, I think, that's its strength, because it really, as us as building things on it, it really helps us focus on what's important. And so you can, so if I was building this for general mobile applications to support games or support e-commerce, it would probably require a lot more features or different capabilities. But since it's focused to the specific like industrial mobile application use case, we can zero in on what's important for those. So that's one of the, that's important to understand. You could see it as a limitation, but I think it's also one of its strengths, because we're able to identify what's critical. Make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Do you integrate with, like, what sort of asset management softwares do you integrate with?
Well, we integrate with our own asset management software, Predix Asset. It is flexible enough where you could integrate, you could build your own adapters to other asset management systems. But we're out of the box. We don't. We're more tightly. We're focused on the Predix asset management system. So, but the microservice, the idea with the microservice integration layer, it gives you a lot of flexibility. So that's where, if you're building these apps, you really have two roles. You have someone who's got to know about how to integrate with your systems, and you got to have people who know how to build front-end applications. They may be the same person, most often they're not. You've got somebody who maybe is very good at Java, Spring Boot, knows how, middleware integration, that they're building these microservices, and you've got front-end developers that are focused on building either native applications or these hybrid applications.
You have the cost for this asset management system?
I don't know it off the top of my head. There is in the catalog. You can go out there and look in there, and I believe the pricing for asset is listed there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned doing like an update push to the app without having to update through the App Store or anything like that. And it all happened really fast. So I was wondering, that wasn't just data, that was an actual update to the logic within the app? And if so, is that just because this is a web view based system that you're able to do? Is that really the only reason you were able to pull that off? Or?
Yeah, right now it's only supported on the hybrid portion of it. Obviously, we can't push native updates. But yes, mostly that's true. Part of it's because Couchbase enables us to sync that data across, so it's easy for us to know if a web application is out of date and then pull it in. But yeah, right now it's mostly because of the web components. It's easy to push that out and then pull it back down to a client.
So for instance, your HTML and your CSS and stuff in the hybrid portion is just being served out of the Couchbase database at that point. It's just Couchbase documents.
Yep.
Some of the things we're working on are continuing to make it easier. So you'll see things coming out next year will be like a developer tool set. So built into the SDK, well, just like with Chrome, you'll be able to pop open a developer tool that'll let you do things like query the local database, or to dynamically just start creating your data model, create some JSON and push it into your data. So we'll give you ways to, some tools on the client side. We're also going to be doing more work on the integration layer and building more connectors, making this concept of command processing easier to understand and use, taking away some of the complexity. You can see we've removed a lot of complexity here. A lot of those things are like just simply installing Couchbase Lite or getting it into your application. Yeah, there's lots of examples, but that's something you don't have to worry about. It's just You just start using the SDK and Couchbase Lite's right there for you. So we're very proud of the work we've done. I think we'd love to open source our SDK. That's another thing we're working on. Right now it's currently not. It's not open source, but the basic the binaries of the SDK, plus the examples are available, but you can just go out to GitHub and download it and start developing right away. Sign up for a free trial. I think it's 60 days. And GE would love to have you, come out and start building industrial applications. So if there's no more questions, we'll stop there. Great, thank you.